Hi guys, welcome to the UEFA Dynasty podcast. This is episode 15, if you've been listening for the past few years. This is the first one of our 2022 season as we started our rookie draft, and we're going to discuss some things about it. I'm your host, Erik, commissioner of the league, also owner of Wolfsburg. With me, I have my co-host, Mike Udinese. Mike, how are you tonight?
Living the dream, man. It's been a fun couple of days. I'm excited to talk about it.
That's some fancy wallpaper you've got going on behind you.
High class hotel, man.
And speaking of the Frozen Man himself, who can't seem to get any technical shit going on right tonight, we have Fred, owner of Hercules. Fred, how are you tonight?
I don't know. Can you hear me or not?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Your face is frozen. Something kind of like this.
That's awesome.
There we go.
This is just going to be fun because he's just going to be in and out, and that's going to be the podcast. And again, we have some fun things to talk about, so it'll be good to have him here when he's here, and when he's not, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have to make a rule, like anytime we say the word pineapple, that means Fred is joined, and we're going to switch to trying to get Fred included, and then we'll just start giggling like school children every time he gets disconnected.
I'm perfectly okay with that rule. So okay. Pineapple it is.
All right, cool. So while Fred's not here, I'll just run through the house cleaning stuff for anyone that needs their brief breakdown of the league. We're starting our rookie draft, followed by our youth squad draft that happens every year. Nothing's new there. Just check in every day, make sure you're being active. Plenty of trading going on if you want to change your team. We have 5 new owners this year, and I just like to quickly introduce them. A lot of them being active on the trades, which is also very refreshing. We have Zach, who is replacing Chelsea's team with Sheffield United. He's made a few trades already. Everton is now owned by Ryan, who's made a fuck ton of trades, especially on the clock. Joe has made a trade or two himself. He now owns Leipzig. Paul, another new owner who's made a move or two, taking over Dortmund, and Dylan, who is the only owner that hasn't made any moves since the draft started, who owns Mines, but he didn't have many rookie picks coming out of the dispersal, so that makes sense. Welcome to the league, guys. If you're listening, send one of these guys an offer. Get him a nice deal. Right, Mike?
I'm actually sending Mines a deal right now.
Okay, great.
Multitasking.
We could talk about it. I mean, I know you're not supposed to talk about deals that aren't done yet, but we're happy to have them, and hopefully they're here for the long haul. We look forward to it. So now that we've introduced the new owners, a couple things I wanted to bring up are the upcoming things for the league outside of the draft. There's a new week in the NFL schedule, so Matt and I are going to have to go through it. I think the easiest option would be to eliminate one of those doubleheader weeks that we have and add a week 17. There'll still be that last week that we avoid because a lot of the starters get benched. We really won't know how week 17 plays out until we see it once. We'll have to see what we're going to do with our championships as well, as that's on a set thing. We might do a 1 week break, just like week 6, take it completely off, or week 5, whatever it is, to line it up. But we will, me and Matt will discuss that. If we're in between, if something's not obvious, we'll post a poll, we'll post discussions. So the owners will be included in that. We try to make it as fair as possible. Mike, you have any preference on how we handle scheduling like that?
Yeah, I think going after one of the doubleheader weeks makes a lot of sense, especially if it's one that may overlap with some bye weeks. That's probably the most fair way to do it. I know it's impossible to avoid them all, but one of the really nice things I was just remarking about our league earlier is everyone's losing their mind around week 14 being a bye week this year. And for traditional leagues, that's going to be second round of the playoffs, whereas last year was week 13, which was first round of the playoffs. So, a lot of people saying, okay, I can't touch. I think it's Eagles, Jets, and a couple of other teams that are potentially going on bye during many people's playoff runs. Ours, it's part of a regular season, so kind of ho-hum, no big deal. So minimizing the impact of that at as much as possible, I think, is great, even though our league format kind of minimizes it a little bit on its own.
Yeah, the soccer mimicked schedule definitely, like, the first 4 weeks, if your schedule is real nice, you could build a team for that domestic cup the first 4 weeks if you're super trade happy. So there's definitely a lot of options. We will be transparent and let you guys know as soon as we make those changes. But right now, there's no schedule in place other than the one that we had that's old. So we will update you guys soon. Some more things that, God bless you. Some more things that are going to happen. We need to update the banners. Jeremy's aware. He's been busy with a few things, so he'll be updating those shortly. I know Zach was very kind to make his own banner, which is very nice. But other things I want to have done. If you've seen it in soccer bars, they kind of have like a poster where they have different trophies, and then each year the team logo of who won it. And I want that so that you can look at one place to see every year. You'll have in a column, and you'll have the 8 or 9 logos of the teams that won the trophies. So that way, a new owner comes in, they can see who's done well in the past, and so on and so forth.
Cool.
Yeah, it's for everyone too. I do have a detailed records page on. Oh, pineapple. Hey, Fred. Fred's on a new device. We'll see if this works. Fred, we're just going over upcoming projects, but we'll interrupt it to say hello. Do you think you'll be connected for more than a couple minutes this time?
I pulled my laptop off at the docking station, so I think that was the root cause. So now I'm just using the built-in mic or built-in camera.
Okay, you're still there, and the camera is on, so we're doing well. We went over the new owners. We went over that the schedule is going to be adjusted, the banners need to be updated, and that we're going to do a at a glance kind of grid format of who's won each trophy in the past, so old and new owners alike can check it out to see what the past history of the league is. Another thing I'm adding, which we were just mentioning, was a detailed records page for each owner. In some of our other leagues, we have that when you click on your home page, it pops up like what your record is and this and that. I'm going to be building that this off season. Hopefully that's done before week 1. And as I did last year, I'll run a youth squad report to see whose youth squads are looking good. Granada heavily reshaped his, which we'll get into. I think it's our first topic of discussion, so I guess that's a great segue. And Mike did such a great job of compiling all this. So, Mike, why don't you introduce us to the 2 cup holder right now, total rebuild of Granada, our friend Chase.
So, as you guys, as Erik has mentioned, our friend Chase does this every once in a while. In some leagues, it's an annual thing. Sometimes it's a biannual thing. But Chase will go about a rebuild like this where he puts a very solid team and tear it down into youth and a lot of different, devies, picks, etc., and then somehow find himself back in the title game next year. So, again, I'm going to call this a rebuild. Granted, often it tends to find him right back in the playoffs. But I've tried to summarize kind of what the major pieces that have moved here. So in terms of what he's given, and I've highlighted some of the major pieces in green, he had given his second through fourth rounders. I think he'd already traded his first at this point for 231 before the draft started. And then after the draft started, he systematically traded away what I would call a starting lineup of Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Miles Sanders, Nuke, Landry, DK, and Kelsey. Probably need to put one more in there, probably Robbie Anderson, as well as Devontae Parker, Emmanuel Sanders, James Conner, AJ Green. But again, in the reforming of his roster, he's gotten some pretty decent pieces back for it. So in terms of picks that have not been made yet, he still has the 148, the 203, the 204, the 227, and the 229 that he's picked up in these trades, and he's only given out the 331 that he hasn't gotten back. He's gotten his first rounder back in addition with Arsenal's first and second, Borussia's first, Dortmund's first and second, Hanover's first, Hercules' first and second, Juventus' second and fourth, Napoli's first, Leipzig's third. As mentioned, he's got his first back. And then in terms of rookies, he's added Rashad Bateman, Trey Sermon, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith. Um, so the point is, he's taken what was his roster, broken it down into already, I think, 4 first round rookies with at least one more to go and a couple of early seconds. And then next year with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 firsts and 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. In addition, he's taken a Bear Taxi squad and now has it at 9 with a U squad pick to be made this year, which would get it to its maximum of 10. Picking up some bigger names like Brees Hall, Gibbs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Julian Fleming, some guys who are not necessarily living up to expectations, but could bounce back, and Bo Nix and John Emery, and then Sam Horde, again, who's a 5-star prospect, number 1 pro style QB in his class, who could be making some noise. So he's gotten some quality devies. He's gotten 7 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks, and he's already made 4 first-round picks with a 5th to go, as well as 2 very early seconds. So, again, for those who haven't played much with Chase before, this is something that happens on almost an annual basis. But when he does it, he does it hard like this. So seeing some of the big names that moved on the left is going to be a little bit jarring. But then if you take it into context of what he's gotten back, I actually would say he's come out ahead so far. But again, I'll leave that open to further interpretation by my other participants here.
Yeah, coming out ahead really depends on those devies hitting, right? I mean, some of these guys I've heard of, but most of them, most of the Devi world is just, Greek to me. So I don't know, which of these people are coming out. Are any of them coming out next year, or likely to come out next year?
Brees Hall, right?
Not really.
No.
I think we're talking mostly 23 class and beyond.
Okay, so even next year he's somewhat boned. He's got all these devies. I mean, he can move them around, but he's gonna be stuck waiting to cash in these tickets.
Right. And again, we've been in enough leagues with Chase that he could choose to do that, and that will be perfectly fine. Or what I think we're all kind of expecting is at some point he's going to say, "Hey, you've come out of the draft looking to build for next year. You should take Sam Horde from me and give me Matt Ryan." Mm-hmm. And what, Brees Hall would look really good on your team in 2 years. You should give me Miles Sanders for that, or stuff like that. Again, these are things that he just gave up. I get, and you guys will see. This is kind of the cycling that goes on, but he'll be able to move these pieces if he wants to kind of stay in the Champions League this year, because that's the difficult thing about this league. Which you look at some of the top teams right now, they can't get at the big money because they're not in the Champions League. So it may behoove him to say, "Yeah, I'm rebuilding, but I need to stay strong enough to not lose a spot there while I continue to reinforce and reload rather than just a full-on rebuild."
Yeah, Mike, you brought up a great point with the aspect that the Champions League requires 2 years of success. Now, his last year was tremendously successful. He had made the most money out of any owner in this league, winning his domestic cup, winning his league cup, and placing in the Champions League. He might have come close to Chris, actually, because the Champions League is the most money, and Chris wound up winning it of Atletico Madrid. But in terms of Chase, we've seen him do this. He is one of the few owners that can go from win now to rebuilding in one off season.
Let's not assume that he's not going back to win now before the end of this off season.
Right.
So I think we're gonna sit here and debate the strategy of, is it the right time to rebuild? For him, rebuilding is always. So it's hard to say that he doesn't know what he's doing because he has been successful in these leagues. But Mike, I know you want to break down the terms of value, but I think he rebuilt better than any team has in this league. I mean, you look at, right here, us three, we're the 3 owners that really rebuilt into a great season too. This year, it remains to be seen what Juventus and Roma can do, but they've clearly made trades to be more win now this year. Mm-hmm. he's got to be the upcoming new favorite for 2024.
Right, and again, it's interesting because there's parts of our league that really are meant to mimic real life FIFA, but parts that don't. Like, you wouldn't see a Arsenal do something like this. You wouldn't see a Man City say, "Okay, shipping out all of my big contracts and give me the youths." But it's something that makes sense in that. So it's not necessarily an easy thing to try and model as you do this. But again, as Erik had said, I tried to put just kind of a rough, my valuation of what these things were in terms of first round picks. Mm-hmm. And basically what I'm saying here is what he's given up amount to about 21 and a half first round picks. And what he's gotten back is amounting to about 23 and a half first round picks. So I think he's coming out a little bit ahead. I think there have been a couple of these individual trades, like, Swift for, Breece Hall being the main piece he got back, where you're kind of like, well, is that really a good deal? But in the aggregate, it's looking okay for him. And again, some of this is, I don't want to oversell the, level of precision here with like 0.8s, 0.1s and stuff like that. That was just me kind of going through it quick. But point is, there have been a couple of trades that have been called out saying, oh, we got crushed on that one. Yeah, this is kind of what Chase does. In the aggregate, though, he ends up kind of being okay. So, good on him for recognizing what he wants to do with his team and going and do it. But definitely an aggressive approach, and one that's made, I'd say, the draft a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, the funny thing to me is that he decided to do this after basically all of the top 6 or 7 studs of this rookie draft were off the board. So, he missed out on the quarterback run. He missed out on...
No, kind of.
Who did he get?
He traded up for one. He had broken down, I think it was Kyler, for a package with 111 in it before that happened. So
before he traded that pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was there early enough to take advantage of those values.
Right.
Yeah, and Mike, you really did make a great point with the Champions League. I don't know if he needed to do this yet. In my opinion, if I were running his team, I'd try to take a Kyler Murray or a DeAndre Hopkins and break it down into multiple contending pieces, maybe a bit younger if you wanted to. They're still pretty young in my eyes, but so you could, have some depth, have some youth, and still compete in the Champions League where you can make the big money this year. Because no matter what, even if he goes win now for next year, if he goes into the year with this lineup, he's not going to make the Champions League. He probably won't make the Europa League.
I can guarantee you that his status in the Champions League was not a consideration that he even thought of. Because he doesn't know how this league works, and very few of us actually do.
Well, again, I draw your attention to the names in green on the left side. The names in white over here are, if you get a first rounder for any of those guys, good for you. I don't think these are the guys that, these are the guys you want to sell. These are the guys you want to turn out, but they're not going to do much to kind of help you reload unless you kind of hit your draft picks. To your point, Erik, he would need to break down a stud. And he's been trying. He's been trying to trade DK for the last, I want to say 3 weeks before the draft, and was unsuccessful. I feel like every day he was mentioning Kyler Murray, on the block, who's going to give me a package, a QB and something else for Kyler, and it wasn't getting it. So, this is just him taking that to the next level of, okay, instead of just blowing up 1 or 2 studs, I'm going to blow up all of my studs and then use that to reseed everything, and then have to use 3 or 4 of those seeds to get myself enough pieces to be competitive with everything reseeded. Because that's the other thing. It's like he moved Kyler Murray, but then it's like, oh my God, he got rid of Kyler Murray. It's like, well, you got Daniel Jones and 111 and a couple of other interesting pieces back that he's been able to recycle. So when Chase trades, he never trades out. He trades kind of back within a tier.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense. If I didn't realize he was trying to shop to consolidate, or not consolidate, to break down a stud before the draft.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's it. He
there's
now has 7 first-round picks. So you take the 4 he's going to take, or 4 or 5 he's going to have this year, the 7 he's going to take next year, and 9 Devies with 3 of them being higher quality. If you choose to sell half of that, he can be a team that's going to maintain its position in the Champions League.
Yeah, at least contending.
what does it require to maintain your position in Champions League?
So let me find. There was a good image that one of the guys in the league
I can share that.
maintains here, and I forget.
It's on the message board if you want to pull it up. It's called he calls it the super table. It is
Yeah.
excellent. But basically, Fred, if you eliminate the few ways you can qualify by like winning the domestic cup,
Right.
it's the top 5 teams in your league.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's in what? La Liga,
Mm-hmm.
Real. So it was. Atletico Madrid was a 6 seed in doing it, but basically you needed 36 points to qualify last year, which means we have a couple of doubleheaders and everything in there. 12 wins.
I pulled up the super table if anyone's watching, or if you guys are looking.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. So I would need to look at some of those teams. And obviously, Fred, I'd say you've got one of the better teams there. I think there's some true quality, but I think there's a couple of teams that did go the rebuild path that, could end up being easy wins. So I haven't done the full-on analysis. I'll admit to that. This is kind of preliminary, but like I said, I think for the price to get some of the veterans and the price some of those veterans are going for, especially in this draft, post-draft, Chase could absolutely sell some post-camp hype and get to 36 points and maintain a Champions League spot, and then get all the reinforcements of those 7 rookie picks next year.
Yeah, he would be the kind of person who would maintain the value of his roster and replace those guys with people who will play now or people who will play this year.
If you take a quick look at the standings from last season, Atletico Madrid and Sevilla, who finished 6th and 7th in their division respectively, were the Champions League finalists, which is very weird. It was very weird how the season planned out. And if you see Sevilla's 2,075 points, which is good for 3rd in his league, and wanted to finish 7th and missing out, he's a team that will probably be taking Granada's spot. Deportivo will be another team competing. So those would be the 2 teams that can take, the Granada spot, Batista spot, even Antonio's spot. I haven't seen of Espanyol. I haven't seen the changes he made. But outside of that, the bottom 5, I don't think they've made any big changes to make them immediate contenders for that. So you're looking at 7 teams competing for 5 spots. That would be my analysis on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, now it's 6 teams competing for 5 spots because Granada is not one of those teams.
Right.
As of this recording.
Right. He hasn't flipped the switch yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's a good enough Granada analysis for now. Maybe I think Mike's in enough leagues where maybe he could write a book on Chase's mind, because I would certainly read it.
No, I mean it's something that I admire the effort, because this is not an easy thing to do. Luckily, in a league our size, he has enough owners that he can kind of shop around and usually find 1 or 2 owners who are interested in what he's trying to do. But in a lot of this, he's either purposely losing deals on paper or losing one to win the next one. Where like TJ Hawkinson, like you're taking Sam Horde back, who's I think maybe 2024, 2025 class eligible. Like that's a big risk. Trading DeAndre Swift, who is one of the darlings of last year's running back class, and the main piece back is Breece Hall, who again had a fantastic freshman season. That's a big risk. But again, spreading out that risk into 20 pieces and then being able to recycle these, it's something that he does really well and to great success across a number of leagues. So Like you said, though, Eric, I think we've spent enough time talking through that.
Yeah, so let's move on to a few more trades that we've highlighted, and a few more that we haven't highlighted that we'll talk about too. But the first one that Fred actually brought up was the Roma giving up his early 102 pick for Everton's Prescott. And so Everton got Lawrence. Roma gets a more established quarterback coming off the ACL. Oh, we might have lost Fred. He's in the conversation. So I'll go ahead and introduce
No, he's still here. You may not be able to hear us, but I can still see him.
I could hear you guys. I just muted my microphone for a minute.
Yeah, so Fred, why don't you talk about Roma giving up Lawrence for Dak Prescott? I mean, he did have a bunch of picks, so maybe he's making that transition to win now. But why don't you take us through that, if you don't mind?
Okay. I don't have it in front of me, but I've been told that Roma gave up 102 for Dak Prescott.
Yeah, so basically he was one of the Luigi, owner of Roma, was one of the rebuilding teams. Serie A had two serial tankers, and I think Roma lost the battle to Juventus in the end because Juventus literally didn't have any. Like, I had to tell him, like, pick up a quarterback and start an eligible guy. Like, he literally had no one on his roster. But so yeah, I mean, second place really isn't too bad in this league because you're gonna get the guy no matter what Devies are gone or anything like that.
Right.
And he gets Dak Prescott instead of Lawrence. I don't know where you guys see that on value, but I like it.
I think it's well, of course you do, but I think it's a fantastic trade for him. I've got Dak Prescott fairly well ahead of any of these rookies, no matter how highly regarded they are at this point. I guess you're banking a little bit on him coming back from his knee injury, ankle injury, but that appears to be going well. And the way he started out last year, he was setting the league on fire. Top 2, 3, 4 quarterback minimum. And I think he at the time he was 1 overall. So if you want to put him anywhere in that group, that's where he belongs. And that's better than the draft pick for me.
Yeah, and I mean, so he had a bunch of picks. If we're looking at Luigi's team right now, Prescott and Hurts and Fields at quarterback, Dobbins and Edmonds and Javonte Williams at running back. He has Hopkins, Ayuk, Pittman, Mike Williams, Jarvis Landry at receiver, and at tight end he has Hawkinson and Goddard. So all of a sudden he's got a team that's going to be competing.
He's got a team that he needs. I think he needs a little bit more depth at the receiver position, or a combination of receiver and running back. He needs one more good guy there. But he's got all these Devies, so he's got assets to move and maneuver with.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler, one of the highest rated QBs right now in the Devy world.
You don't say.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Mike, any take on the Dak versus Lawrence trade here, or Luigi's roster?
So I'm going to start with the trade, and I'll go into Luigi's roster. I prefer Dak to Lawrence for so many reasons, but as Fred will tell you, I'm an Ohio State fan, and I had many years where Urban Meyer led our team back to prominence and even won us a national championship. However, there were quirks that he had in his offense that were a lot of times him trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And it works sometimes. He made Dwayne Haskins look like a first-round pick. Curtis Samuel has been probably maybe overdrafted and overpaid because of his contributions or lack of contributions in a couple of locations because of his role there. But that being said, he scares the crap out of me as a head coach in the NFL because a lot of these things aren't going to work in the NFL. And some of the things he's going to try and do aren't going to work. Like, just take in and of itself, lying Travis Etienne, who is one of the better backs in the class, up at receiver all mini camp. Now, maybe this is all just colored bubbles. Maybe this is something that's real. But if you take a running back in the first round and try and convert him into a receiver, that's not a recipe for success, especially when you have a running back there who was one of the more productive ones in the league. So it's things like that Meyer and Bevel are going to do that I think are going to make Trevor Lawrence less successful early on. Now, it's a bit of a rant, but if I'm trying to compete, if I'm trying to win, if I'm trading my first round pick, as Roma does relatively soon after this, I want the quarterback who is going to be more stable. Now, look at Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup's lines last year without Dak Prescott. Now, that O-line is back. Zeke Elliott is back healthy. Dak is back healthy, and that defense looks to finally be loaded for bear. So give me Dak Prescott all day by a wide margin over Trevor Lawrence now and in the next 3 years.
Okay. And now you said you also want, and so I think we're all on the same page. We all picked Dak. We all knew I was. You two I wasn't sure about. But if we look at Luigi's roster, did you have any more comments before we move on, Mike?
So yeah, I mentioned that he had made the trade up to get Justin Fields also to pair with Dak. I like that. Again, the mobility I think makes a lot of sense. Has the running back. I think Luigi's being targeted in his approach here. He's got the pieces that I think he's going to be able to finish mid-table or lower table with a team like this. So he's not going to be able to take a team like this, turn it around and say, okay, great, I'm going right after the cup immediately. But he's got the right pieces here. And like you said, with now 3 quarterbacks, with Spencer Rattler in his taxi squad, Trey Palmer, G. Scott, guys like that. If he needs to go add a receiver, if he needs to go add something else, he's got the ammo to go get it done. So kind of like Chase's. I don't think we've seen the final product of Roma's squad yet, but the iteration that we have here, a starting 8 of Dak, Hurts, Dobbins, Edmonds, Ayuk, Hopkins, Landry, Pittman, and Hawkinson, or Goddard and Hawkinson, taking an example of doubles happening tight end in a premium league. That's probably 110 to 120 points week in, week out.
Yeah. I think he's got a little bit above a mid-table team right now, and if he makes the right moves, he could be a serious contender. Although, you can make the argument in this league, since he's not in the Champions League due to his piss-poor performance last season, it may be just a qualify for the Champions League, then push all in the next year.
Right, and I think that's going to be the thing here is I think he probably needs one more running back before he can be seriously considered a top-table team. And Javonte Williams can develop into that. But again, I think this is let me get enough points to be in the running. And then once I'm in the running, I'll go from there. But that being said, I don't think Luigi's pick that he gave away is going to be in the top 10. I don't think it's going to be in the 30 or higher. But this is a good team.
All right, so we talked about Roma's team a lot here, and it is another team like so. If every league has a Granada, they also have a Roma, right? One's making one shift one way, and the other one's zigzagging the other way. But a few things that we really wanted to go over in this draft were a couple of picks that we thought might have been against the chalk.
Well, can I do one more trade before we jump into that, Eric?
Oh, sure. We could jump around anywhere, too, but go ahead.
I want to talk about the adventures of Terry McLaurin.
Sure.
So Terry McLaurin has had a very exciting draft process here, both him and the things he was traded for. So it kicked off, I want to say last Friday, Fred, when you traded Terry McLaurin for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Terry McLaurin was then not with Everton for long. The next day, he was flipped for Chase Claypool, the 142, and the 145. Now, that 142 and 145 made a couple of journeys throughout the draft process, being the compensation back for the 108, Everton going Chase Claypool, 142 and 145 for the 108. Then Liverpool down the line, taking that same draft compensation and sending it to Atletico Madrid for Jameis Winston, Leonard Fournette, Aaron Jones, and Marvin Jones. And then I thought that Atletico might have broken parts of that off. 142, 145, and then Granada's first to go get Jamar Chase. And then I believe Granada may have taken two of those pieces and moved them as well.
Mike, he traded 142, a future second, for Gibbs, Fleming, 2 Devies, and a first-round pick next year.
Right. I think 145 may have gone on a separate trade. That's right. His deal for 133 involved the 145. So whether it be Terry McLaurin or things that Terry McLaurin has been traded for, there are about 6 or 7 deals that have come as a result of that. So, Fred, does that make you feel like a happy papa?
Well, in a way, I feel like he's all grows up now, and he's off on his own and doing his own thing. But the whole cascade really fell into my lap and the rest of the league's lap, because Everton's the one who approached me out of the blue just to take Rodgers' hands.
Okay.
So yeah, that one was in my inbox and set off the trail of trading that happened through that.
Well, and we're talking about this McLaurin trade. In my eyes, even though I can't spell his name right, he's set up for a great season. He's done fairly well despite any QB consistency. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, he could give you some consistency. He could give you some volume. I kind of like that pairing. I really hadn't thought about it too much before tonight, but I really do like that pairing.
Oh yeah, as a local to the Washington football team, they've been talking about that since Fitzgerald was picked up, and
Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Fitzpatrick was picked up, and
as a local,
people are I don't pay too much attention.
Fitz whoever.
People are salivating over what Terry McLaurin can do with a quarterback that's willing to throw it down the field and into any coverage or whether or not he's open.
Yeah, it could be massive, but clearly people have his value pinned down because there's never a question over that value if he's going to be traded so much.
Well, he only got moved twice. It's all the other picks that got moved after that.
Right. That's true too. Yeah, there was a bunch. I think Mike broke down like 5 or 6 of them, and I think there was like 10 total if you go through all those picks. So yeah, it was a huge breakdown. But yeah, we could keep jumping into trades if you guys think of ones or you see any. But there's a couple things we brought up during the draft that were interesting. And maybe a little bit against the grain, or maybe for the grain, depending on how you're looking at it. And the first one here that we were going to highlight, that all 3 copies of Chase went before Pitts and Harris, you can argue too. And some people may forget, this is a tight end premium league. It's only 1.25 PPR, but it's premium nonetheless. And Mike, you were the one that actually brought this up, that you think Pitts should have went ahead of Chase in this format.
Yeah, and again, look, I love Chase. I love Pitts. Obviously, I love Pitts because I gave up on Hurts to move into a position where I could move up for Kyle Pitts. But in a tight end premium league with 16 team equivalent, tight ends are a scarcity, especially top tight ends. And when they're at an extra premium, the fact that he's going at a 105 equivalent in this situation, yes, I get it super flex too, but I was very surprised to see Chase jump him. I kind of assumed pre-draft, and when I was trying to move up to get him, I was going to have to move up into the top 10 range. When I saw Lance come off the board and I saw copies of Chase come off the board, I was a little bit relieved in terms of the price I was going to have to pay to jump from 119 to get up and get Pitts. So, again, definitely something I wasn't expecting, considering the nature of our league.
Yeah, I think the only quibble I have with that is I really don't consider this to be a TE premium league because that 0.25 points is such a small amount, and tight ends really don't get that many receptions anyway. So I mean, you're still banking on yards and touchdowns for almost all tight ends. Apart from the very top ones, it gives you an incentive to have one of the very top 4, 5, 6 tight ends, but after that, it's not much of a difference maker that I would take a tight end over a different position.
Right. So again, it's a question of, you have a tight end going to an offense that's supposed to feature them, and tight end who is getting comparisons to Darren Waller versus a guy who's getting comparisons to, Devontae Adams or Julio. So that's kind of the ceiling. And again, a tight end going this high is unheard of in most rookie drafts like this. But for anyone who's been in a true tight end premium league, especially if you're having to start two, like I said, I was just surprised he wasn't going. He wasn't the 104 or 103 on people's boards. I was happy to get him where I could, but I was surprised to see him jump see Chase jump in front of Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't super flex, but I've seen him go first overall, and
right.
that was a 1.5 tight end premium. But I think in every situation where I had a chance, I've taken him, and that's in several different leagues. I believe in him as one of the top 3, 4 tight ends going forward, for as long as Matt Ryan is still standing, I guess.
Yeah, and if I pulled it up on our screen, our tight end scoring from last season, there's a huge drop off after the first couple, right? So I think if you were analyzing who you were taking in this draft, it came down to, is Pitts a top 3 tight end out of the gate, or is he someone that is gonna not be super consistent at the NFL level to start? Not many rookies do, especially at tight end. I know they say he is the best tight end to come out of the draft in a long time. So it's definitely up for debate. I wouldn't fault anyone for choosing one over the other.
Well, I don't think he's going to get the targets that Kelsey, Waller, and Hockenson are going to get, simply because of the nature of the offense that he's on. But I can't tell you that anyone else is going to get more than him after those 3.
Well, how about let's play a little scenario here. Julio gets traded to Tennessee. Now, do you like it?
Yeah, so I'm working under the assumption that Julio is going to be on the team, and if that changes, then that the calculus is very different.
Right. So again, I am one of those that will over-rotate on system. Arthur Smith had Jonnu Smith in Tennessee last year, and you can recall Jonnu Smith lining up in the backfield as a fullback, as a tight end, as a receiver. Literally anywhere that Jonnu Smith could line up, he could line him up. As far as I'm concerned, Kyle Pitts is a Jonnu Smith plus. So now you've given a coordinator who's shown that he's willing to be incredibly creative in ways that he's going to use a player to maximize their skills, and given him an improved version of what he's used in the past. So, look, I don't need to turn this into a Kyle Pitts podcast. I think there are plenty of those that'll do that for us. But he's one of the special players, I think, out of this draft.
Well, Mike, and one more thing on Pitts. The one thing I noticed in Tennessee last season is that even though Jonnu Smith was great, there would be days where like Ferkser would get more targets, and you're like, "Where's Jonnu Smith? Like, he's been so good this season," and he would just disappear behind another tight end, in almost as if they ran a lot of 2 tight end sets too. Would that concern you, or at least for the first couple seasons?
So if I recall correctly, Jonnu was actually dealing with the injuries a good portion of last year.
It could have been 2. I don't even see him here. There he is. Yeah, it looks like he missed 2 games.
So yeah, it was a kind of injury that he missed 2 full games, but then he was hindered for a good number of the rest of them. So, look, it's anything can happen. Anything is possible with these things. I think those were some of the first bigger games, like the 27-pointer. I think was a game that that Johnny missed, and then Firsker became kind of a tight end dependent, tight end too. So that being said, I think that look, I
Yeah.
don't need to gush anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So it's certainly something worth bringing up, and there is at least one more that I wanted to bring up for this draft, and this was it started with, and I'll bring it up on the screen here. Arsenal taking Waddle at 127, while he had Mac Jones on the board. He had Javonte Williams on the board. He had Devonta Smith on the board, and I thought, in drafts that I've seen, Waddle has not gone this early, and I thought it was kind of a reach. Like, I mean, if you're going to take Waddle, trade down at this point. However, we did see the second copy go 2 picks later, and then the third pick go 4 picks after that, before the Smith copies, in between the Williams copies. Oh, actually, in between the Smith and Williams copies, and after the Mac Jones copy there. So, I think the scariest thing for me is the system he's going into and the competition that he has. The Dolphins now picking up Will Fuller, who is a great receiver in my opinion. So I don't know that he's going to be a consistent fantasy producer in the first few years of his career.
I think this is going to be a situation where the cream will rise to the top in Miami. Jalen Waddle, skills-wise, is probably ahead of Devonta Smith for me. He's behind Chase for sure, but the question, who's the second best receiver in this class, it can go several different directions, I think. And before he went to Baltimore, people were willing to take Rashad Bateman there. I agree that he shouldn't be there today, but Waddle over Devonta Smith, why not? I thought he was better when the two of them were on the field together. Waddle over, Williams. Positional team need, I guess. Generally, the running back is going to be a little bit more hard to find, a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. In our league, positional scarcity is a little bit, less important, since you really only have to start one. It's really more of a preference.
Right.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think? Do you think I don't know. I'm definitely in the I take Smith and Williams over Waddle, but what camp are you in?
I think once you get past, frankly, I think it's Pitts and Chase, it kind of turns into a dealer's choice situation. In terms, I'm sorry, once you get past Harris, it turns into a dealer's choice situation of, are they taking Etienne? Are they taking Zach Wilson? Are they taking Mac Jones? Are they taking one of the receivers? It literally comes down to the makeup of the league, the rules of the league, and what personal preference is in terms of systems, skill of players, etc. I've seen situations where Waddle has gone in front of Etienne, and all of the above have gone in front of Mac Jones. Clearly, quarterback was more of a priority for a couple of teams in this stretch, so Mac jumped in front of them. But frankly, I think this is kind of one of those things. I look at tier-based drafting. These guys are the third tier for me. So, whatever order you have these guys in, you take them in that order.
Okay, so you have no problem with it. You didn't reveal yours, but I know you're still in draft, so maybe you don't want to reveal where you stand yourself, but you have no problem with it for sure.
No, I mean, and frankly, I think I agree with Fred. I think Fuller is a good add for Miami, but there's a reason he's on a 1-year deal. I think Parker and Preston Williams and Waddle and now Fuller give 4 really good targets with Gesicki and Hunter Long there. That Tua's got targets coming out the wazoo. So now it's a matter of just, okay, which ones mesh with him and which ones don't. The ones that mesh with him, they're back next year. The ones who don't, later. But it's one of those where Waddle has all those prototypical receiver attributes that you're looking for beyond just the deep speed and also can contribute on the special teams game. And don't forget, the coaching staff in Miami is pretty much a transplant from New England, where special teams and kind of doing multiple things is very important to being a part of that team. So I expect Waddle to contribute in multiple ways. But again, I could see, by the same token, Devonta Smith literally just made a mockery of college football this year. So I could see going that direction. There are highlight plays where Devonta Williams puts everybody on their ass. Like, it's literally what do you need from a team perspective, and which type of receiver, what type of player do you like the best, and that's who you go with. So I won't fault anybody for taking any of those guys in this range.
Yeah. Okay. So those were the two big takeaways from the draft. I have a couple trades I could bring up before we wrap things up. Is there anything else in the draft you guys wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I think it's been really fun that so many draft picks have moved during the draft. I don't recall it being this active last year, but just through the first half of the first round, pick 5, 8, 9, 15, 16, 14, 19, 11. All of these picks moved either while they were on the clock or right around then. So yeah, people are seeing the guys they want. They're going after them, and I think that's just a blast.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. It has been a blast.
Yeah, I think, and again, teams shifting gears, both upshift and downshift, has been really interesting. We went into the Chase downshift. We talked about Juventus and Roma doing upshifts. Everton's basically completely remade his team, trading Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott, right before the draft, getting the 102 and Terry McLaurin, then taking Terry McLaurin, turning that into picks, and then that turned it into a 108 and all that other stuff. So it's really fun this time of year, especially with new owners who go through the process of making the team their own. So now Everton is based off of Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance. Again, two very good prospects in terms of what he's getting there. A little bit to be desired, and probably going to have to wait a little bit at the running back position until Javonte takes a little bit stronger hold of that backfield. But then, CeeDee Lamb, LaVisca Chenault, Michael Pittman, he acquired DK Metcalf, and then I know he was aggressively selling him, but only for the certain things that he wanted. So Everton has done an incredible job this draft of making this team his own. I don't think he's done. I think there's more moves yet to be made. But one of those owners I'll give particular credit to for being proactive in looking for trades rather than just kind of sitting there and saying, why isn't anyone trading with me? Not that anyone's doing that, but I think, there's some leagues we've been in where trades have been happening, and it's like, well, how come nobody's trading with me?
Yeah, I talked to him recently because I was one of the owners he was trying to sell Metcalf to aggressively, and I'm not trying to buy him, so I was like, I don't mean to be rude, but apparently this is his style. He likes to trade and trade a lot. He knows what he's going for, and he's not shy of talking to different owners. The one interesting tidbit with Ryan, I talked to him. He said he didn't like the dispersal draft. He's like, I'd rather just take the orphan and know what my plan is. And I even told him, I was like, I'll take feedback. I'm a type of owner, when I take an orphan, I like the dispersal because it gives me an ownership of the team that you kind of don't have when you first take an orphan. But if more people agreed like this, we could always switch to okay, we got 5 openings, let's fill the 5 slots and not do the dispersal, even though it's in the bylaws now.
Yeah, the problem with that is you end up with 5 teams in a dispersal that are of very different qualities. Mm-hmm. And there will always be 1 or 2 teams that are more desirable, and then the other 3 people are left holding the bag with a much more difficult rebuild. The dispersal at least balances out those assets insofar as people get to choose their own mistakes.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, that's the way I feel of it too. And yeah, we could play case by case in this league. I'm not I'm not
Yeah.
set in stone.
So as the new teams that came in, and I'm sorry I missed that part of the conversation, are they all going to be retaining their original names, or will some of them be picking up? I know Sheffield. I think was he the one who made his own logo?
Yep.
Yep.
It came out. Jeremy sent me his idea of what his was, and it was very similar, except the font was much nicer on on Jeremy's. So he adapted Jeremy's logo because he's like, oh no, this is nice.
Yeah. So will those teams all be picking a new team name, or will they be keeping?
They all chose to retain it, other than Zach. Zach wanted to rebrand, and the rest of them are like, nah, I like the teams that were there. You know, they part of the dispersal. There's no way of balancing like a snake draft in the dispersal, but what we do is whoever gets the last pick in the dispersal gets to pick which team they fill, which is picking your division and your possible new logo. And every team's given the option like, hey, you can pick a team of someone that quit, or you could pick a new team that no one has, and we'll get you the logo and all that. And four of them were just like, I don't watch soccer. I'm good. Give me whoever.
Nerd.
But like some people still care about their logo even if they don't watch soccer.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So
it's just weird to me as a existing owner to be dealing with Everton and it's not the Everton, or oh, this is a new Everton.
Yeah, well, hopefully people listen to this podcast and they got the new rundown, so they won't be as confused. But if you click on their roster, it says their name. You're talking to a new guy on GroupMe, right? When you're dealing negotiations, you'll find out one way or another. But I wanted to bring this up to you, Mike, because it's a trade that I found interesting, where you gave up Hertz for the 119, which I don't have in front of me exactly who you took, but there was another trade for Hertz. I mean, if we're looking at the times, 12 hours later, where Chase actually traded for Hertz. And I was curious to see if you thought the value was about the same, or if you felt about your trade differently after you saw the second deal.
So, I mean, it's what you were going for in this, which is important. So Chase was trying to diversify Metcalf and Ertz into two premium pieces. The third, I'm just going to leave as a point of no consequence. So he was able to break Metcalf down for the most part into Judy, who is a disappointing rookie season, but still quite strong, and Hurts. So again, I think that the value's there. I think there are some differing views as to whether DK Metcalf is a greater than 101 asset or whether he's kind of in that high first range. I think the value I put on him obviously was a high first range, whereas the value that Hertz was in Chase's deal was probably in that high to mid first range as well. So probably around the same point, but mine I'm able to measure against the 119. To the 119 and 129 get you the 106, which I would say maybe is a DK Metcalf point. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
Yeah, you're always running into that weird liquidity problem with those high-end assets when it comes to the rookie draft. People are a little more enamored with draft picks. They can move them around easier. They can get the guy they want. Whereas the somebody like Metcalf, you have to find the right team who's interested in him and has the assets that you want to receive back.
Right. Yeah, so Erik, is in terms of what I got for those, so I've been kind of lucky in both of my trades that I've done, or sets of trades that I've done this draft. I traded, I think it was the 121 back, or the 128 back to the 139 Juventus's first before I did the Hertz trade. So then I used the 139 and the 119. I used I used those two picks to get the 205 and the pick I used to get Kyle Pitts. Yeah, 139 and 115 to get 114 and 215. 114 I used on Kyle Pitts. The 215 I added to Juventus's first, which I also got in that move back deal to get Matt Ryan. So in reality, it
Okay,
was
gotcha.
the 128 and Jalen Hurts to get Kyle Pitts and Matt Ryan.
I
Nice.
think that's a good deal for you.
Yeah, I like that for you too.
And then the other one, it was basically Gibson and my third and fourth to get Miles Sanders and Rashad Bateman.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, you
I
move
think
around a
you're
lot.
you're one of the people who are higher on Bateman than others as well, aren't you?
I think I have Bateman in 80% of my leagues right now.
Wow, that much. Minnesota
Um,
prospect?
Minnesota prospect. The thing is, he won in every type of route. The go route, the curl route, the hitch route, was just a slant king. Again, he's not the same size, so it's not a good comparison from that perspective. I see a lot of AJ Brown there.
So now, when you look at him, do you see him as the guy that's going to be the number one in a year or two?
I think for what he does there, I don't think he's ever going to get the number of targets that a guy, some of these other receivers like Michael Thomas or things like that will be. That's just not the type of offense they run. But again, I think he wins in every facet of the field and just gives them the versatility to do what they want to do. They have an outside guy now who can win the jump balls, can go over the middle, who can do all those things, and basically is enough of a threat that now Mark Andrews is not the number one receiving option there.
Do you think that Baltimore is capable of opening up their offense enough to make use of him?
I mean, and I don't think they have to open it up all that much. I think if they threw it 400 times last year, if they throw it 450 times, I think he gets 120 targets, and I think that's enough for him to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 in our league. I think as they see what he can do and the ways that he can win, I think they will shift a little bit more the direction. I think Greg Roman has shown he's had the flexibility to be, run first, but adjust it up or down as it needs to. And I think Bateman's the kind of guy who's going to make him do that.
If you're watching the stream right now, you can see the Bateman highlights. I'm watching it as you guys are talking. It's very distracting.
These are the worst highlights because he's open by 10 yards on every play.
Yeah,
and that's not going to happen in the NFL.
No, and that's the thing. It's like you're not going to play against Penn State level corners in the NFL. I think there's quite a few, and the thing that impressed me the most with him and makes me think he's going to succeed with Baltimore is look at the number of times he's got to adjust because the ball is not put where it's supposed to go. Either he's got to go get it because it's too high, he's got to come back to it because it's underthrown. The ball is not where it's supposed to be. This is, what we're seeing right there is a good example of it going where it's supposed to. But there's more than enough here where it's the ball is not properly placed and he's got to adjust to it and somehow still make the play. I think that's something he's going to have to do a lot with Lamar and something that, that skill set's going to translate well for him to this offense.
Yeah, and a couple of the plays you just see, it's great ball skills, to be able to separate himself from the defender when they're on. Now, they might be higher quality in the NFL, which, remains to be seen, but, you get flashes of Dez when you're watching this.
Yeah, if he was just a little bit bigger, people would be saying that about him.
Yeah. Right, and that's the thing there. Like, look this Penn State play. If the ball is put over his outside shoulder, that's a touchdown. It's not. He's got to stop, come back, and secure the ball and make the catch. But again, this is playing with Minnesota quarterbacks instead of playing with, maybe 4 or 5 star guys.
Yeah, I actually I got him in one of our other leagues, and the Charty League. He's my Devi, so I'm excited to see how he does.
Yeah, and like that's the other thing. He broke out incredibly strongly at a young age. I think had over 1,000 yards either his freshman or sophomore season, and this year even Hurt put up enough points and yards that he was pretty impressive. And then was just injured enough that he just finally shut it down and got ready for the draft.
Well, yeah. Well, that's some good talk on. There's a clip end too. How about that? on Bateman. Does anyone have any other trades or picks they want to talk about?
So from a Devi perspective, I think maybe that's something we can touch on here.
Sure. Yeah, some Devies.
With Chase acquiring basically a taxi squad full of Devi players here, I think, Brees Hall is one that I'm a huge fan of coming to this. I think a lot of people saw him being the counter, the sort of the foundational piece of what went for Swift. I think maybe just kind of people getting a better idea of what he looks like and what he's able to do in the football field as a true freshman is something that's going to, maybe open a few eyes there.
Yeah.
Again, we see him winning inside the tackles, bouncing it outside.
Where is he from? Iowa State?
Iowa State, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of prospects that we got here that aren't from like some of the big SEC schools or the the teams that are in the championship every year.
Yeah, but he's got good balance, good contact balance, good speed.
So, Brees Hall is up. I guess Bijan Robinson is probably the number one Devi prospect right now. And Brees Hall is right behind him.
I'd say it's pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, you would be. I think I don't know how Fred is with Devies, but I'm not great at college stuff. I usually wait till they declare for the draft.
Usually, our Devi draft is the first time that I have ever heard any of their names, and I don't follow any of their college's career. So I'm not a college football fan. I don't pay any attention to the incoming rookies until roughly the Senior Bowl. So yeah, it's an afterthought.
He's got some speed
Right.
though.
And one of the things I really like about Brees, and you'll see in kind of the film you have here, is there's not a lot of like herky jerky in his game. It's he sees the hole, he hits the hole, and he's going, north and south. It's a lot of guys will try and like throw the shoulder wiggle in there, or the hip wiggle or stuff like that to try and get somebody off balance. I think Bijan will do that on a regular basis. He's not the player I'm going to compare him to. I see his running style very similar to Adrian Peterson's, where it's I'm picking the hole, I'm getting up to speed, and I'm going through the hole. I don't think he has the side of Peterson. I don't think he has the speed of Peterson, but I think I'm going to attack the point where I'm supposed to go to. I'm going to get the yards I'm going to get, and then I'm going to get down, and we're going to move on to the next play. Especially for the level of reliance and the number of different ways they use him in the offense. I think it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, certainly something to keep an eye out for, and I'm sure Chase will be looking now that he's owned the rights to his Devi pick. But in our league, you can also draft him in the rookie draft, which is, I don't know of many leagues that have done that. I don't know of any leagues that have done it, but I think it's a pretty unique feature where hopefully the rookie pool isn't too depleted, and the Devis still matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the idea in theory. Everybody gets a Devi pick regardless of who they are, where they finished, and there's no trading until the Devi picks have been picked. So the coupling that with the fact that everyone has to take somebody unique, and then the second and third copies show up in the rookie draft is a nice twist.
Yeah, I've liked how it's panned out so far. It's definitely the long-term approach. So I think the next rookie draft is going to be the year that 2022, where we see some of these players declare. Probably only a few, and those few will be the ones that start right away. And then 2023 will be the one where you see a bunch of our Devis start. The guys that get drafted. I mean, even if your guy is a practice squad guy, you're still going to be able to keep him on the roster if you want. You'll have to make that debate. And, some people will stay in college and they'll stay on your Devis. But 2023 will be the first year where it's like movement in every direction. We got people declaring, we got people staying in college, and we got people getting drafted into the league again. So that's when the full circulation will be from when we draft them to when they get on our rosters.
Yep.
Go ahead, Fred. What's up?
I was just going to say that the I'm looking forward to seeing how the Devies that I've picked end up coming into the NFL, and whether or not I did a fine job of choosing them, even though none of them are on my roster anymore.
Yeah, and that's what I want to highlight with that youth squad report is like, it basically there's two levels, like who you had graduate on your roster and also who you drafted. And since everyone has to draft someone, everyone's going to have that statistic. Although it's not truly fair because like the top 5 picks are always going to get the 5-star recruits, and then everybody else is like just throwing darts. But it's still going to be fun.
Sure, but those top 5 picks shouldn't be the same 5 teams every year if they're doing it right.
That's true. That's very true because if to get awarded the top in the youth squad means you just barely missed being good. But one last person I'll bring up before we conclude tonight is Matt's Devi prospect. I know he always listens, so I figured I'll bring him up, and if he's watching on YouTube, he can take a look. And this is the number 1 QB Devi according to some of the Devi sites that I've looked at, and it's Sam Howell, the North Carolina QB, and he's really took NCAA by storm. He's got to be in contention for the Heisman this upcoming year, I'm sure. But I never thought a UNC player in football would be making such a big impact. But Matt did some good job picking him in the youth squad, and I know he's really excited for him. I'll start with you, Mike, since you seem to watch the most college. What do you know on Sam here?
So Sam's actually been a darling recruit for some time. So again, he's a good grab by Matt, but he was kind of in that contention with the Spencer Rattlers and folks of that draft. Number 3 dual threat quarterback in that class. So
okay.
Not necessarily a complete unknown, but granted, the level of talent that Mac Brown has there in UNC is pretty impressive. Like you think about Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, who just graduated this year and went in the draft, and their respective points. Diami Brown, who you're seeing a lot of these highlights, being a good point. And frankly, I think there's a number of offensive linemen who are pretty impressive there. So he's in a offense that's tailor-made for him to succeed. So it's kind of one of those, is he this good because he's this good, or is he this good because he's got the offense and the talent around him? And frankly, in the ACC, unless you're playing Notre Dame or Clemson, you're not exactly going to have the toughest matchup on a week-to-week basis. So I like some things I see with him. I think he might be a little bit overrated, and I kind of feel that way about all the quarterbacks next year. But again, I've heard arguments made about Howell being the QB1. I've heard Rattler be the QB1. I really like Daniels, but I think he's a little bit undersized. I think everyone next year is kind of in that like next tier down. I'm not going to say they're like Haskins level, but I think they're kind of like a 4-star, quarterback prospect. Whereas this year we had, 3 or 4 or 5-star QB prospects.
So, if we're gonna compare your idea on this class, Mike, do you think it's more like the Jared Goff, Carson Wentz class, or do you think it's more like the Trubisky, Watson, Mahomes class? That's a tough one because I think Goff and Wentz were like they weren't like the guaranteed 1-2. It's just that those teams really needed the quarterbacks, right? They weren't super stoked about either one of them, if I remember correctly. And then in the next draft, none of those Watson, Mahomes, and Trubisky, none of them were home runs coming out. Everyone had question marks on all 3 of them, and that's why they didn't go in the first couple picks, and they were drafted later.
So I'm going to give kind of an unsatisfactory answer.
Sure.
I think it's both. I think it's the quality of quarterback that was Goff and Wentz. I think they're going to go in the range that, like you had mentioned, that Trubisky and Mahomes and Watson went. The reason I'm kind of making that distinction is I think with the benefit of hindsight, everyone saw that, okay, maybe Jared Goff and Carson Wentz weren't the quarterback saviors everyone thought they were. But, I think now with the level of quality of quarterback in the league, you probably got 3 or 4 guys who could be starters on teams who are in backup roles. So next year, you're going to be in a position where, okay, if I need a starter at quarterback or I need a long-term solution at quarterback, I might not need to find that guy immediately in the draft. I might be able to wait till, later in the first round or stuff like that. So I think they're going to slide a little bit, but I think they're, the quality of quarterback of the Goff and Wentz level.
Okay, yeah, it'll be the coolest thing about Devi is that you could change your mind next year after you see them play again, right? Like you can see them progress. They're kids. They could make the next step if if certain things are developed, and they could also regress, like we saw with like someone like Sam Darnold, who was like number one, and then his year before draft, everyone was like, oh, he really wasn't that good at USC this year. We're kind of worried.
They should have been.
What? Oh yeah. I mean, well, we'll see how he does with the Panthers. It'd definitely be better than when he was with the Jets, right?
Maybe not definitely, but probably.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, that was fun breaking down some of the youth squad guys and putting them on. Maybe the next podcast we could do something like that. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we can do that. Just have a youth squad report, easy feed in, something like that.
Yeah, and I'll just make sure I don't have any monetization on because I'm using people's highlights clips that are not mine. Well, I think that was a fun podcast. We can conclude things there. As more draft picks and trades are made, we certainly will have more things to talk about. And next time I'll make sure I have a little more prepared in terms of research and stuff. Because full disclosure, probably started like 30 minutes before the podcast. But I think we did a great job tonight, guys.
Yep.
I applaud you both.
Yeah. Was that sorry?
I said I applaud you both.
Yep. And I appreciate the feedback that we're getting in the chat. We like to make sure this looks as professional as possible, although granted we are amateurs. So thanks all for the support as we we try and make this even more fun.
Yeah, and if we ever miss anything where you're listening on an audio version, you're like, shit, they're definitely talking about something that's on the screen, I apologize. Like Mike said, we're amateurs.
They can always watch the YouTube channel.
Yeah, the YouTube video will always be up if they want to check out. But I think that'll do it for us. Any closing statements before we leave? No? Fred?
I got nothing.
What were you drinking tonight, Fred? At least give the viewers that. I know they care about that.
This is Baby Shark.
That one?
It's a hazy IPA.
Ooh, very nice.
It's lovely.
All right, Mike. Any closing thoughts on your side in the hotel, where in an undisclosed location?
No, again, I appreciate everyone tuning in. It's a lot of fun for us to do, and hopefully it's fun for you to watch because again, this is supposed to be tailored to your league. So hopefully next time we jump on the mics, we'll have a few more picks being made. So we have a little more content to cover on that side, but loving the activity, loving the passion, and loving the level of engagement from all the owners. So good job, guys. Keep it up.
Yeah, keep making trades, and you don't have to do it at Chase's level for us to talk about it. Eventually, he'll slow down and become yesterday's news.
At some point, we'll start getting banners again, maybe.
No, I'm thinking we're done.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we got to give Matt a little incentive to do that.
He broke our system.
Everyone was traded in thirds just to try to get a banner. But yeah, that's a good place to end it. I'm sure we'll do a podcast soon once we get some more. And thank you so much, Fred and Mike, for taking time out of your night to join us here tonight. And thank you to all the owners for making this another fun-ass draft. So much activity, more trades than any of the rookie drafts I'm in. So keep it up. I really appreciate it. And good night.